everyone, I'm Jessica Stutzman and welcome back to the Millcreek Government Channel. Aquatic invasive species are non-native plants, animals, and other organisms that have evolved to live primarily in water and aquatic habitats rather than on land. According to the National Park Service in the United States, there are more than 250 non-native aquatic species from other continents and over 450 non-natives within North America that have been moved outside their native habitats. With us today is Sarah Stallman, Extension Leader for the Pennsylvania Sea Grant, to inform us of the most pressing aquatic threats to the Lake Erie ecosystem. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you for having me back.
Well, and again, we do love having you back. So just remind our viewers, what is Pennsylvania Sea Grant?
Sure. So Pennsylvania Sea Grant is one of 34 programs throughout the country. So we're under this big umbrella of NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, and each of those programs is affiliated with a university. So really any state that has any type of coastline or Great Lakes shoreline has one of these programs, and then a university that's affiliated with it. So here in Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania Sea Grant is affiliated with Penn State University. We get that federal support from NOAA as well as support from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Ultimately, our goal is to protect and sustain Pennsylvania's coastal resources. We do that through research, we do that through education, and also outreach. So I like to think of us as kind of bridging that gap between science and the user to help make educated decisions based on science when protecting Pennsylvania's resources.
And your hub, you guys are based out of the Tom Ridge Environmental Center, but like you said, you guys work a lot and so many hours in the field doing research too.
We do, and we actually have offices in Erie, near Harrisburg, and also near Chester. So we deal with the Great Lakes region, we deal with the Susquehanna and the Chesapeake Bay region, and we're also dealing with the Delaware River. So we've got a wide area to cover and a lot of issues to take care of. And one of those is aquatic invasive species.
Yes, and you are so knowledgeable. I love having you on the show to talk about this. I think you do such a great job presenting the information. So I gave a really basic definition of aquatic invasive species, but what's the more scientific definition that you can give us?
You gave a really good definition of invasive species. Really, it's quite simple. It's species that aren't supposed to be here that get introduced. So it's actually different than non-native. Non-native is the same kind of thing. They're introduced, they're not supposed to be here, but invasive actually means they cause some kind of harm. So that could be harm to the environment, so competing with native species, altering ecosystems. It could be economic harm, so costing us all this time and money and resources trying to control them, or it could be harm to human or animal health, so carrying pathogens or being a pathogen. And the thing to remember is most of the time these things aren't moving around naturally. So it's more of a human-mediated type of introduction. So I think last time I was on, I spoke a lot about, boats and anglers and aquatic recreation, and those being ways to introduce invasive species. So today I'm actually going to talk about one a lot of people don't think as much about, and that's the aquarium trade, which falls under the general term organisms and trade. So it's kind of the umbrella that you can think of essentially an exchange of a live organism. So somebody selling that organism and somebody purchasing that organism is the general definition for organisms and trade.
And I was going to say, I like that spin because we did talk a lot about, like you said, boats and barges and things like that. So can you explain more about what organisms and trade and the aquariums, what does that mean?
Sure. So again, this is a service that's, between a consumer and a supplier. So for example, you can think of a fisherman getting fish and selling it to a restaurant. And then we go in and we purchase that fish. So that would be considered a vector of organisms and trade. Another one might be bait. So you have a bait dealer out catching bait, brings it back to a bait shop, and an angler comes and purchases that bait. That's another example. And then aquariums and water gardens are one that it's so popular in the United States, and that's why I'm focusing on that one today. And so we all love aquariums. There's 13 million household aquariums in the United States, and that doesn't count for the businesses. So you go to the dentist, most likely there's going to be an aquarium there, or you go to a restaurant and there's an aquarium there. They're relaxing, they're full of beautiful, colorful fish. But the thing is, a lot of times those fish that we love to look at are not from Pennsylvania. They're tropical species that, if they get introduced, can cause a lot of problems. Another thing with regards to organisms and trade is it might not just be the species that you're purchasing that could be an invasive species. It could also be something that is either attached to that species, within that species. So for example, a pathogen or an illness or a disease that's within that species that could be harmful. And also within the packing material, these things come in. So there's a lot of organisms and trade is a very complicated issue, and there's a lot of different facets to look at. And I don't know if anyone's heard of, there's recently an introduction of zebra mussels through mossballs. I don't know if you've heard about that, but mossballs are actually these balls of green algae, and they're actually beautiful. People use them for decorations in their aquariums, and you see them in like betta bowls and stuff like that. And in Washington, they found zebra mussels, which I talked a lot about last time, actually attached to those moss balls.
Wow.
So there's a lot of ways within this vector of spread for things to get introduced.
And I think it's interesting, again, that we're kind of taking this route on this topic this time because, again, you mentioned, vectors and disease and pathogens, but, I think everybody is, very acutely aware of how easily things can spread now that we're, I guess 1 year into this pandemic. And so my mind, my mind is kind of spinning here right now, just thinking of, even, just the silly goldfish that are usually prizes at the fair. Like you said, all of those aquariums. And I did not know about the moss balls. Why is, and I guess this never occurred to me before. I think that my pet fish just passed on, but that was a long time ago, not recent. But I suppose actually just, looking at our next topic here is that there are folks in places that end up, saying like, this pet is, beyond my capabilities. Absolutely. And now I'm going to release it into the wild. So I was too. I'm like well recovered from the passing, but I didn't know that people would release these into the wild. So I can picture why this is such a problem, but why don't you tell our viewers what is all entailed?
Yes.
In
so thinking about the popularity that I mentioned with the aquarium trade, a lot of people have aquariums and aquarium pets that go within those aquariums. And actually, when I was younger, I used to work at a pet store, and we sold little red-eared slider turtles, which are an invasive species of turtle, but they're little and cute, and we would just sell them like candy. And what people didn't necessarily realize is that this cute little turtle would grow to be 10 to 12 inches in diameter and potentially live 20 to 30 years. And so that's a commitment a lot of pet owners just aren't prepared for. And so what they think is the best thing to do, this is a turtle. This can go in a pond, and I'm going to set this species free, and I'm doing the right thing. And a lot of times what people don't realize is that, yes, that's a turtle, but we have very specific species of turtle that are native to Pennsylvania, and the red-eared slider is a turtle that's not native to Pennsylvania. And so whenever you introduce something, it's not supposed to be there, you're introducing a competitor for native species, and you're introducing something that can really alter the ecosystem, and that's something that a red-eared slider turtle, for example, can do. You mentioned goldfish. Goldfish is another one. That's actually an invasive species, and I think that surprises a lot of people, but they're considered an invasive species, and when you release them, they can grow really, really large. And what they love to do is dig their noses into the sediment and uproot plants, and it causes a a lot of turbidity, and it really just changes the overall ecosystem that our native species are living in. So they cause a lot of problems, and people often don't realize that they have other options besides, you know, releasing that species into the environment.
Right, and you know, just having kids, you know, just think about, and I'm just going to, for easy math here, just say, you know, you're 30 years old and your toddler wants one of these turtles. Do you really want to take care of this turtle when you're 60 years old? I mean, is this like a lifelong pet that you want to have?
Absolutely.
So
it's got to be a commitment, because as soon as little Timmy goes off to college, that's going to be your pet for the long haul. So.
Exactly. Okay, so what types of projects does Pennsylvania Sea Grant undertake to improve public awareness about this issue?
Yeah, so one of the things that, you know, I mentioned the red-eared slider turtle, and I actually have a little prop. A red-eared slider turtle has this red ear, which is how it gets its name, and these are being found on Presque Isle State Park. And again, I mentioned that they compete with native turtles, and there's threatened and endangered species of turtles on Presque Isle State Park, and it's something that, you know, we said, what are we going to do about this? How do we raise awareness? How do we control the population on Presque Isle State Park? And we actually saw a project that Ohio Cleveland Metro Parks was undertaking, and it was a red-eared slider control program, and we said, okay, well, let's look into doing something, you know, similar to that here in Erie, Pennsylvania. And so we've been doing this for several years now, and we've been setting traps at several different locations throughout the park, some of them on Waterworks Pond, Lily Pond, and we bait them. They're traps that are baited with like dog food or cat food. And we do capture turtles and we do remove the turtles. The sad side of this story is that once we capture red-eared slider turtles, they have to be euthanized. So people don't like to see turtles euthanized. And so, you know, one of the things that we talked about with this project is how do we include kind of that citizen aspect, that citizen science aspect. How can you get involved? How can you help? And also, you know, raising the awareness about this issue so that people don't release them. So one of the things that we're actually doing tomorrow, I'm very excited about it, we're having our very first Pet Amnesty Day. So we are partnering with the Erie Humane Society, and we're partnering with the Herbs Alive Foundation, which is based out of Cleveland, Ohio. And we're offering to take back any pets that folks might have that aquarium pets, not the warm and fuzzies, but, you know, things like fish and snails, and we will take things like snakes and lizards and stuff like that. So if it's in an aquarium, that's kind of what we're geared towards. And Herbs Alive is essentially like a reptile amphibian type of humane society. So it's no kill. They try to rehome these species. And if they can't rehome them for any reason, they stay there at their shelter. So we're asking people to come bring in their pets so that they have an option instead of releasing them.
And I will tell you guys, you have done a wonderful job advertising. I do follow you and the Humane Society on Facebook, but for whatever reason, every time I, you know, do a little Facebook scrolling, the advertisement for the Pet Amnesty event is popping up. So
that's wonderful.
I think you guys have done a great job getting it out there. We do not have any aquarium pets. That's kind of not my thing. So I won't be bringing anything to you, but I definitely encourage you.
You can spread the word.
I can spread the word. If you have, you know, aquarium pets, you know, make sure you look into Pennsylvania Sea Grant. Again, to just rehome these properly and not just dump them into a pond or, you know, the Presque Isle Bay or anything like that. What else are you guys doing?
Yeah, so this is kind of more general outreach, but this is something we've done for several years and it's been really successful. It's called the Aquatic Invasive Species Landing Blitz, and we've done it here in Erie and actually all throughout the region. And that's something that we do around July 4th weekend. And what a blitz is essentially blitzing information to people about invasive species. So it's 4th of July, people are out boating, they're out fishing, they're out enjoying the natural world. And so we felt that that was a really good time to partner. This is a Great Lakes region-wide effort. So all the Great Lakes states are involved. It's not just Pennsylvania. And we're all working together to come up with messages and giveaways and things that we can talk to the public about with regards to, hey, if you're at a boat launch, do you know about invasive species? Do you know how you can clean your boat? You know, here's some materials. Here's a towel for you with the messages on it. And so it's an opportunity for us to really get out there and connect with the public And last year, we obviously weren't able to do that, but we were able to do a really nice social media blitz where we got a lot of messages out that way. So that's another exciting thing.
So with this year, are you doing the social media blitz again, or are you able to connect with people in person?
Well, now we're doing a hybrid version, which is actually really exciting because, there is that opportunity to get out and talk to people face to face. There are some boat stewards that are going to be out there volunteering their time during the blitz, but the partners that came together last year and those that maybe aren't doing boat programs, they're like, well, we still want to be involved. Tell us how we can help. And so we're coming up with those messages that can get, blitzed out through Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and things like that.
That's awesome. And tell me a little bit about rapid response mock exercises.
Oh, so yes. So we're doing a lot of work with making sure that when species are found in new locations, that we act on it and that we're able to try to do something about these species before they have a chance to really establish and spread. Once they do that, it's nearly impossible to really eradicate them. It becomes more control, and that's when all that, money and resources and time has to go into it. So getting them early. So we've been working with state agencies and those around the state that are doing a lot of invasive species work to help kind of practice what happens when something gets here. How does the process go? What does it look like? And what changes do we need to make for when this actually does happen? So that's one of the exciting things that we've been doing for the past couple years now, is just getting people out and kind of practicing, communicating with each other, sharing resources, finding funding, and really just amping up the fight in Pennsylvania against invasive species.
What did you learn during some of those exercises?
That we need more money. That's always something that comes up, is how do we get funding? No, actually, one of the really interesting things that came up was reporting. Do people know when they find something what they should be doing with it? And this kind of ties in with one of the resources I wanted to talk about, but we've been doing a lot of work with, providing those venues for reporting species. So if you're out in the field and you see something that looks kind of sketchy, like, yeah, I'm used to seeing this and this, but this looks strange to me, you should say something to somebody about it. It could be an invasive species. It could be something that's brand new to the area that hasn't been there before. And so we're working on, there's a hotline in Pennsylvania for reporting invasive plants and insects, and we've just added an aquatics line to that, and now we're working on trying to develop a vanity number for it. So, it might be something like 1-833 invasive, so it's easy for people to remember and to be able to dial it in. And then we developed a smartphone app for, here, I'll just show a picture of it here. This is a field guide that we developed, and this has all of the different invasive species in Pennsylvania. It's a resource for people to use to identify if they find something, kind of new and different. And we've taken this and we've put it into a smartphone app. And so within that app, people can actually report species directly from that app. So a lot of really cool things going on. Right now, it's just Apple version, but we just got the funding to start in July developing the Android version. So by the end of this year, we'll have both versions, and they can be found by searching PAAIS.
Well, that would have really helped me out this last summer. And, your phone is great for researching things quickly and whatnot. And, I saw a new, that I had never seen here, species of, I can't describe it, but it looked like a moth, between a moth and a butterfly. And so I was like, I have never seen this before. So I'm Googling and I'm typing fuzzy moth, fuzzy butterfly with wing. I'm just typing in all these crazy things, and I am so glad that you have this app, because now I don't have to type in weird things on Google until I figure out what these things are in my yard. So
yes, this will help you. If you see something that looks strange, you can look in the app to see if it's one of the invasive species, or if it's a lookalike species. It kind of helps you distinguish between species that might look similar and what to look for. Tells you how to report, tells you where they're typically found, so you can see if, hey, this has already been found in my county, or maybe it hasn't. And if it hasn't, that's even more reason to report, so that agencies and those that are working in invasive species can take action.
And that's what I was going to say. It is important to report it, not just to notice it and identify it, but to then actually report it.
Absolutely. Yep. We rely on people that are boots on the ground. We can't be everywhere at the same time, and so there's people that are just taking walks, that are enjoying nature, and a lot of times that's where our reports come through.
And what steps can pet owners take to ensure that species aren't released back into the ecosystem?
Sure. So kind of going back to the aquarium and the pet trade, So I already mentioned our take back event. That's one thing, that's probably our biggest thing. You know, if you no longer want to have your pet, bring them to the pet amnesty event. We're actually going to try to hold these regularly, and so maybe twice a year. So if there's something that you don't know what to do with, look for one of our events. We're actually looking at holding them statewide as well. So we're working with some partners to try to expand this effort. So if you're located on the other side of the state and you really want to participate, but you don't want to drive all the way to Erie, there might be something closer to you. Other things that you can do, if you have a turtle or a fish or something that you don't want, is to connect with a local aquarium club or a herpetology society and see if they have options for you. Sometimes they trade or will work with you to rehome that pet. You can contact your veterinarian for looking at humane ways to deal with the animals that you don't want, but we never want them released into the environment.
Right. And if you're not a pet owner, what other ways can we prevent the spread of these aquatic invasive species?
Absolutely. There's ways for anyone really to get involved. I mentioned the Aquatic Invasive Species Landing Blitz and some of the work that we're doing there. I would say if you're a boater, for example, or an angler, the clean, drain, dry message is a really important and key message. So, if you're out there using a water body, just using your eyes and looking at your equipment, is there a piece of plant hanging off of it? Is there dirt or debris? And cleaning that off before you move to a new location. So that's kind of the clean part. Some people go a little further and might take their boat through a car wash and clean it that way. But even just using your eyes or rinsing something off is a good way. Another thing that you can do as far as the clean, drain, dry message is draining. So this is never transporting water from one water body to another, because water can also carry things that are too small to see with your eyes. I think last time we talked a little bit about this with zebra mussels. Their babies, their larvae are so tiny you cannot see them. So it's important not to carry water. And then dry, these are aquatic organisms, so if you dry them off or let them sit for at least 5 days, you can really reduce the risk that you're spreading aquatic invasive species.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that. So 5 days is kind of the magic number. Let it dry out, and then we should be good to go on preventing any spread.
Yeah, so for things like boats and kayaks, absolutely. For things like felt-soled waders and things that are, a little bit more absorbent, it's actually longer.
Okay.
You want to wait till your felt-soled waders are bone dry and then give it another 48 hours. So sometimes that doesn't work for people, so then we stress kind of more of the cleaning kind of aspect of it.
Yeah, those are great tips, and our show is actually coming to a close. Absolutely. I can't believe how fast the time went. What other resources, you guys have a fantastic website. I do follow you on social media, but what other resources can our viewers tune into to learn more information about this?
Yeah, we have a lot of resources on our website, seagrant.psu.edu. We have fact sheets about all the different species that I'm talking about. We have tips for prevention. We have videos. We have all different kinds of resources if you're interested in learning more. We just started a video series over COVID because I'm used to doing face-to-face presentations with people, but not being able to have that face-to-face interaction. We developed some kind of short 5-minute videos that talk about invasive species, so you can learn about them there. We also have the field guide and the field guide app that we'd love people to download and use. We have educational resources as well for teachers. So just go to that website, check out all the things that we have, and I'm always available to answer questions for people if they want to contact me.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. Like I said before, you really are a wealth of knowledge on this subject, and I love talking to you about it. And every time we talk, I feel like our conversation just takes a different turn, and I learn so much more. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me again.
Viewers, we learned so much information today. There are so many places you can go to on the Pennsylvania Sea Grant website, social media, download their app, and again, just be good stewards of Lake Erie. Make sure that you are finding these amnesty programs for your aquatic pets if you no longer want them, or just making sure that your boats and your equipment are completely dry before going to another body of water. So I want to thank you for tuning in to the Millcreek Government Channel, and until next time, have a great day.